Hello, beautiful people. Hope everybody's had a great week. I want to say thank you very much for watching and listening. You guys are fantastic. Thanks for the feedback. You guys are awesome. So thank you very much. Let's get down to business. I want to read something to you, kind of start off the topic for this week, but it's from a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I know you're not supposed to read directly from books on social media because um, you may not buy the book if I've read parts of it to you, but it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's called Atomic Habits. Make sure y'all can see that. It's Atomic Habits by James Clear. Of course, that's probably backwards because the way I've got the camera facing. But the topic I want to talk a little bit about this week is decision making, standing on your own 2 feet, making up your own mind. I'm glad the election's over, and that's kind of got what me kind of has me thinking about this topic, about people um, doing what they feel is right, standing up for what they believe in, standing on their own 2 feet, and fighting back for what they believe in, and not going along with the crowd. So I'm going to read this little section to you. It's not very long, and I read like a kindergartner reads out loud, so apologize if my reading aloud skills are terrible, but I want to read this to you. It's kind of impactful. It's a great book, so like I said, I highly recommend the entire book, but this is a great section. But let me kind of preface this. What he's talking about in this section of the book, he is discussing the role of family and friends in shaping your habits, and one of the points he's trying to make is he breaks these into a couple categories. One category is how we imitate our proximity, imitate people close to us. And then he also talks about imitating the many, so imitating the crowd. And I'm going to read that section to you. Like I said, they might take this video down for me reading this, but we'll see. But I'm going to read it to you. And like I said, I read like a kindergartner out loud, so I apologize for that. But I highly recommend the book. So let's get into this part. It's imitating the many. In the 1950s, psychologist Solomon Asch conducted a series of experiments that are now taught to legions of undergrads each year. To begin each experiment, the subject entered the room with a group of strangers. Unbeknownst to them, the other participants were actors planted by the researcher and instructed to deliver scripted answers to certain questions. The group would be shown one card with a line on it and then a second card with a series of lines. Each person was asked to select a line on the second card that was similar in length to the line on the first card. It was a very simple task. Here's an example of 2 cards used in the experiment. So I'll show you that. So you'll see there that 2 cards, one card with 1 line, another card with 3 lines, and they're tasked with selecting the line on the second card that closely resembled the 1 line on the first card. Very simple, very easy. The experiment always began the same. First, there would be some easy trials where everyone agreed on the correct line. After a few rounds, the participants were shown a test that was just as obvious as the previous ones, except the actors in the room would select an intentionally incorrect answer. For example, they would respond A to the comparison shown in Figure 10. Everyone would agree that the lines were the same, even though they were clearly different. The subject, who was unaware of the ruse, would immediately become bewildered. Their eyes would open wide. They would laugh nervously to themselves. They would double-check the reactions of other participants. Their agitation would grow as one person after another delivered the same incorrect response. Soon, the subject began to doubt their own eyes. Eventually, they delivered the answer they knew in their heart to be incorrect. I'm going to read that again. Eventually, they delivered the answer they knew in their heart to be incorrect. Asch ran this experiment many times in many different ways. What he discovered was that as the number of actors increased, so did the conformity of the subject. So the more actors, the more conformity of the subject. If it was just the subject and one actor, then there was no effect on the person's choice. They just assumed they were in a room with a dummy. When 2 actors were in the room with the subject, there was still little impact. But as the number of people increased to 3 actors and 4, and all the way to 8, the subject became more likely to second guess themselves. By the end of the experiment, nearly 75% of the subjects had agreed with the group answer, even though it was obviously incorrect. Whenever we are unsure how to act, we look to the group to guide our behavior. We are constantly scanning our environment and wondering, what is everyone else doing? We check reviews on Amazon or Yelp or TripAdvisor because we want to imitate the best buying, eating, and travel habits. It's usually a smart strategy. It's usually a smart strategy. There is evidence in numbers. But there can be a downside. The normal behavior of the tribe often overpowers the desired behavior of the individual. For example, one study found that when a chimpanzee learns an effective way to crack nuts open as a member of one group and then switches to a new group that uses a less effective strategy, it will avoid using the superior nut cracking method just to blend in with the rest of the chimps. Humans are similar. There is tremendous internal pressure to comply with the norms of the group. The reward of being accepted is often greater than the reward of winning an argument, looking smart, or finding truth. Most days we'd rather be wrong with the crowd than right by ourselves. The human mind knows how to get along with others. It wants to get along with others. This is our natural mode. You can override it. You can choose to ignore the group or stop caring what other people think, but it takes work. Running against the grain of your culture requires extra effort. When changing your habits means challenging the tribe, change is unattractive. When changing your habits means fitting in with the tribe, change is very attractive. So, very, very compelling information that you probably already know. Just put in a way like that, it makes a whole lot of sense. So, I've seen, I'm sure many of you have seen plenty of social experiments online where, and they use the example of the lines drawn on a card where if enough people in the room give the wrong answer, people will just go along with that wrong answer because they don't want to be an outlier. They don't want to be an outlier. They don't want the crowd or the group to laugh at them if they got the answer wrong. They start to believe the wrong answer just because a bunch of other people said the wrong answer, even though it's so obvious, it's so crystal clear that is the wrong answer. And just so people can fit in and feel included, they will absolutely repeat the wrong answer. And like you said, this is human nature. This is how we are. It's very difficult to go against the grain. Even when we know in our hearts, we know in our souls what is the right answer, what is the right thing to do, and we're too weak, we're too scared to be removed or looked at differently from the group. We're just terrified to, like I said, stand on your own 2 feet, regardless of what people think and regardless of what people say and regardless of what's on television, what's in the media, what your coworkers say, what your family says. It is the most difficult thing that you will ever do is stand on your own 2 feet when you know you're right. And there's a lot of opportunities in the world that we live in to do this, and it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it's like a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger that muscle gets. And the first time, it's probably going to be scary. The first time, it's probably going to be hard. It's probably going to take you some time to build up the courage, but there is nothing more liberating than speaking the truth. And I forget the old expression, but truth to power. That's ultimately what it is, speaking truth to power. Just because someone in authority says something's true doesn't mean that it's true. Just because someone or a lot of people online, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter or Reddit, or just because a lot of people say something doesn't make it true, doesn't make it so. And one of the most liberating things you will ever do, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it also comes with the most freeing feeling you could possibly ever imagine, is to say what's right and do what's right, regardless of what is popular, regardless of what is cool, regardless of what gets millions of views on TikTok or whatever, to say the truth, to speak the truth. And like I said, it's terrifying, but the reality is it's like a muscle, and the more you do it, the freer you will become, the more liberated you will become. And eventually, you will convince other people to stop following that crowd and do what's right also, because your bravery and your ability to stand on your own 2 feet and do it is going to inspire the next person in the group to do the same, because somebody else is going to see you, and they're going to also realize that they've been lying too. They've been dishonest to themselves. They've been dishonest to their group. They went along with the programming because that's what everybody else was doing. And as soon as they see somebody that can do it, as soon as they see that somebody else in their group or in their little whatever you want to call it, like programming, as soon as they see that somebody else can do it, they'll start doing it too. You're going to give somebody else the courage. You're going to give somebody else the strength to stand on their own 2 feet. And then the momentum's going to shift the other way. We're going to get back to where we need to be. We're going to get back to the truth. We're going to get back to simple, true values that everybody shares. That's no longer a lie. It's no longer groupthink. It's no longer, I'm scared to go against the grain because I don't know what's going to happen. Enough people have to stand up, stand on their own 2 feet, and go against the grain and stand up for what's right and speak the truth. I know it sounds silly and it sounds crazy, but the reality is that deep down in your heart, in your soul, you know it's the right thing to do, and you're just scared. You're just afraid. And there's plenty of people out there leading the way. And if you haven't found them, look for them. They're out there. Believe me, they are out there leading the way. There are pioneers that have left the groupthink, that have left the I'm going to lie to myself and lie to everybody I know just because that's what everybody else is doing. They've left that crowd. They've left that group, and they're making a new way of being able to speak their truth all the time, because that's their reality, and they're not just going to pretend that somebody else's reality is theirs too. So, like I said, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but very, very worth it. It's very liberating to be able to speak the truth and say the truth, regardless of whether or not other people go along with it, regardless of whether other people believe it. But what is true, and it will always be true. That's sort of the thing that I've come to realize over time, is that there's a whole bunch of really, what's the word I'm looking for? Complex, I guess. There's a whole bunch of really complex lies out there, but yet there's so many simple truths that we all just know and we all just understand, but we just go along with these complex lies because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what everybody else is saying. That's what's in the newspaper. That's what's on television. That's what's on social media. So we go along with these complex lies that make no sense, that help so few people. They do almost no good, but that's the direction that everybody's going in. So that's the direction we go in. When in reality, the simple truth will always stand true. It will always stand tall. The simple truth, if it's complicated, it's probably not true. It shouldn't be complicated. The truth is usually never complicated. But yet we go along with complicated lies because that's what everybody else is doing. So I encourage you, I encourage you to read this book. Read that book. But I also encourage you to find the strength, find the willpower, whatever fear you have, embarrassment, shame, being ostracized from the group. I mean, and the second half of what he was saying is really powerful too. You know, the way chimps group together and the way they live together, that they discover things at different rates. You know, you can see that all throughout the world, even as a human race, but chimps discover things at different rates. So if one group of chimps has a superior way of cracking nuts and they remove a chimp from that group and move it to another group with a less sophisticated way of cracking nuts, the less sophisticated way wins out because the chimpanzee or monkey with the superior nut cracking skill or method doesn't want to be the outlier. So even when you know that you're right and you know that your way is better, you're going to not speak up. You're not going to stand on your own 2 feet and say what you know to be right, even though it's a better way. Like, it's crazy to think that that's where we are and that's what the world that we live in. But you know in your heart, you know in your mind, you know in your soul that the truth is the truth, that there is a better way. And just because millions or billions of people are doing it the wrong way, doesn't mean, it doesn't invalidate the truth. It doesn't invalidate that there's a better way. And just because fewer people believe that there's a better way doesn't make it incorrect. It doesn't make it wrong. There is a better way. And enough people have to stand on their own 2 feet and start walking in that direction and proving it and making that happen for the people in the go along with it, regardless of whether or not it's better for everybody, or regardless of whether or not it's good for the group, or regardless of whether it's a better method, until they start waking up and start joining the reality of what's going on, that there is a better way, that there is a faster, more efficient, more effective way to do something. And government's a really good example of that. We just go along with this programming, not even realizing or understanding that, hey, maybe there's a better way, maybe there's a more efficient way, maybe there's a more effective way. And there's probably people out there that have been saying that for a long time. But again, we're scared to see what's so obvious that's right in front of us. The lines are right there on the paper. The numbers are right there on the paper. The government inefficiency is so blatant and in our face. The lines are not the same size. We're saying, hey, yeah, this makes sense. This is our government. These lines that obviously do not go together, we're pairing up lines that don't go together. And people are just going along with it. So there is a superior way to do things, and I hope that we get there. I hope that we stop lying to ourselves, and the sooner the better, really. But it's going to take individuals, because it's not going to take groups. There's not going to be big groups that shift their mind or shift their thinking into a better way of thinking. It's going to be grassroots. It's going to be individuals making a decision, realizing that I'm not going to say that these lines are the same when I know that they're not. I'm not going to say that these lines are the same. I'm just not going to do it. One of my favorite of videos of those social experiments was they planted, obviously, actors. It's in a doctor's office, in like a waiting room, okay? And they planted actors in a couple of the seats in the waiting room, and the subject would come in for their doctor's appointment, and they would sit in the waiting room, and every few minutes there would be this bell or this little sound that would go off. And all the actors were playing along with the idea that every time this bell went off, they would stand up from their chair for a few seconds and then sit down. So as the subject came in, of course, the subject doesn't know what's going on, but the subject would come in and sit down, and then a few minutes later, this bell would go off, and all the actors would stand up. And of course, the subject's like, what the hell are all these people doing? And it was only a matter of time when this bell went off so many times that, guess what? The subject that had no idea why, no idea what they were doing, just started going along with it. Then when the bell goes off, they're standing up. For what? Why? What are you standing up for? Why would you stand up? Just because a bell went off? Just because you heard a noise? Like, it's because other people are doing it. Other people are doing it, so I'm doing it. Why? What are you standing up for? And then it got to the point where there were no actors. They slowly phased the actors out of the experiment, because it had to look like a real doctor's office. So they were calling them back for their appointments. And next thing you know, it was all subjects, and they're all just standing up. They weren't even in on it. They're just doing it because when they got there, other people were doing it. It's just insane. It's bizarre, but that's the world that we live in. We are just going along with a bunch of stuff that we've never stopped to really think about. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Is there a better way? Can we be more efficient? Can we be more effective? Or why are we even doing this? Can we just stop doing whatever the thing is? Can we just stop doing this? Like, is there just a way we can just stop? Because I'm not even understanding why we're doing this thing. Can somebody explain this to me? And it gets, what will get these people in the group the most irritated is to be questioned like that. They're not going to want to explain. They're going to look down on you and talk to you like you're stupid. And it's mostly because they don't know either. So if you ask them to explain, hey, why do we do X, Y, and Z? They're going to get furious, and they're going to get mad, and they're going to get frustrated and talk to you like you're stupid. Like, why don't you get it? Why don't you understand? Why are you so difficult? Damn, you're dumb. But the reality is they can't explain it because they don't know. They don't know why they do that. They don't know why we're doing that. That's why they can't explain it, because they don't know either. So they're going to get mad. They're going to get furious. They're going to get upset. But you're going to have to start questioning some of the stuff that's going on. Why are we doing this? What's this for? What's the purpose of this? What's the meaning of this? Why do we do this behavior? Where's all this money going? Like, that's a really good question to start asking. Where's all this money going? The last time, and it's, not related, but a funny story, not really funny story, um, but a company that I helped start after being there about 7 years or so, I started asking that exact question, and it ended up getting me terminated from the company. They threw me overboard. But that's the reality of the situation. Like, I started asking, I'm like, hey, where's all this money going? And sure enough, about 30 days later, they basically threw me out of the company. So it's going to piss people off, and it might cause turmoil in your life. That's the reality of it. Like, you have to brace for impact when you start asking questions, because they're not going to like that. When you start speaking truth to power, it's not going to look good. Now, the good news is that, for example, in that exact scenario, I'm way better off now than I was when that was going on. So yeah, it took some time. Yeah, I went through a downtime. Yeah, things weren't great for a while, but that's part of starting over. When you leave groupthink, and you leave inefficiency, and you leave things that don't make sense, you're just going through all these motions of task and things. Once you leave that, there's going to be a dip, and maybe for you there won't be a dip. You could just go straight right into straight into improvement. Who knows? Everybody's situation is going to be different, but you have to be prepared for the worst. You have to be prepared for, it's probably not going to go good for a while, but it's like anything else. I mean, if you start a workout plan, yeah, it's going to suck for a while. You're out of shape, you're weak, whatever. Or if you're going to start a different diet, yeah, it's going to suck. You're eating salad instead of pizzas. It's going to taste different, so it's going to be hard at first, whatever that means. Oh, it's hard to eat salad, whatever the hell that means. But the reality is, it's the same thing with groupthink. As soon as you put your foot down and say, hey, you know what, this right here, this don't make any sense, and you'll know you hit a soft spot by their reaction. The way they react to you asking that question, the way they react to you saying, hey, you know what, I'm not so sure about this. Their response will tell you everything you need to know, and it will tell you if you're on the right track or not. 100% for a fact, I guarantee it. Their reaction will tell you everything you need to know, and then it's going to be like a domino effect. And I promise you, your life's going to change. You will be so much better off when you are. What do they say? The best views come after the hardest climb. That's a reality. You're about to start a climb that's difficult and challenging and hard. But the reality is that by the time you get to the top, you're going to have the best view that you've ever had. Because right now you are in the crowd. You can't see anything because you're in the crowd. You're in the crowd. You can't see anything other than what people are telling you. All this noise coming from different places, people telling you this, people telling you that. You're just sucked into it, going along with it, and you can't see anything. You're in the back row of a concert, like you're just looking at the Megatron, trusting that the cameraman's got the best angle of the concert. Like, you're just going along with the program. Like, it's crazy. So I don't know what I'm rambling about at this point. I'm just going on and on, but I promise you, speak truth to power. You know better. Your heart, your soul, your mind, you know the truth. You know reality. You just have to stand up for yourself, stand on your own 2 feet. And yeah, you're probably going to get knocked down a little bit, but that's okay. Strength comes in picking yourself back up. Some people are strong. Some people are born with great genes. Some people are born lucky. Some people are born with muscles. Some people are born with an appetite for working out. You know what? And some people just get strong from picking themselves up off the ground. Those people are out there. So you might just have to get strong from picking yourself up off the ground. That's just a sad reality, or not sad. It's a reality. So just prepare. Like, I have old friends, a lot of old friends, but a couple of old guys I used to work with used to argue with each other all the time. And one of their little shots that they would take at each other is, whenever they had enough of one or the other, they'd be like, why don't you go outside and practice falling down? Okay, so just so you know, life's tough. You're going to get your ass kicked. You're going to get knocked down. But the deal is how many times you're going to get back up. So speak truth to power. You're going to get knocked down, but you're going to get strong getting back up. I promise you. But stop going along with the lies. Stop going along with the programming. You know the truth. It's in your heart. It's in your mind. It's in your soul. And it's undeniable at this point. And it's and you know what I'm saying, and you understand, because it's going to mean something different to every single person. But there's something that's been inside of you, and it's been growing inside of you, and it's getting harder and harder and harder to ignore that thing that you just have been going along with for too long. And you know you've been going along with it for too long because you're afraid to leave the group, you're afraid to rock the boat, you're afraid to go against the grain. Like, that thing for you is the thing that you need to do. It feels like it's the hardest thing. It feels like your life's going to be over. It's the change that you're afraid of. It's the, you might lose friends, you might lose family, you might lose your job. There's all these fears that go along with it. But the reason why you're scared of it, because that's the thing that you need to do. You got to stop going along with somebody else's programming. You're tuned in to somebody else's channel, and you're just going along with it. It's a raging river that you just got caught up in. It's a direction that you didn't even want to go, at a speed you don't want to go. It's not even, you don't even want to be in the water and you're in a raging river. You want to be on land. You want to be on a mountain. Like, you're just caught up in somebody else's thing, and you're just stuck. You can't see your way out. You just have to figure out a way to get yourself out of this river and on dry land and standing on your own 2 feet. And like I said, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, not going to be simple. Your life is not going to look the same. And I think that's what scares people the most, is that we get used to things being a certain way, and we fear making any kind of change that's going to make our life look different. But the reality is that, you know, using me for an example, is if I would have stayed in the same mindset with the same people doing the same things that I was 25 years ago, nowhere close to anywhere near where I am today. And that's not saying that I'm anybody or anything, but a completely different shift in lifestyle, a completely different, complete shift in mindset and where I want to go and what I want to do with my life. But if I would have just stayed in that river with those same people, my life would have turned out very differently. If I would have had a life at all, would have turned out very differently had I not have just finally said, you know what, this isn't for me. This is not it. This is not what I signed up for. This is not the direction I want to go. This is not the destination. Like, I could see it from 100 miles away what my options were if I stayed doing this. So I finally had to say, you know what, this ain't it. This ain't for me. This ain't who I want to be. This isn't where I want to end up. So I had to make some difficult decisions. And it wasn't just once in my life. I had to do this several times. And it's still now. I'm still making decisions like, hey, you know what? This ain't quite it. I thought this was it. I'm closer, but this still ain't it. So I had to keep making difficult decisions that it causes my life to change drastically. And it's hard starting over all the time. It makes it really, really hard. But you know what? I did not want to live with regret. So I faced the fear of change to not live with regret. I just don't want to live with regret. And there's things that I do regret because I've done things wrong. I've made mistakes. There's opportunities I didn't take advantage of. There's, things I can't forgive myself for. Those things exist. I have regret, but I try to minimize my regret by doing the hard things, like I said, starting over. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I got to pull this Band-Aid off and I got to try something new because this ain't it. And that's what you have to do. You have to face that fear. You've got to stand on your own 2 feet. You got to say the truth. You got to speak the truth. And there's going to be people that don't want to go along with it. There's people doing it. There's things that you know in your life that you can do better in your way because you know your way is better, and you're doing them in an inferior way because you're convinced by a group of people that their way is better. And you know in your heart, you know in your soul that you have a better way. So do it. Whatever that thing is, do it. I'm telling you, now's the time. You're not getting any younger. You are not getting any younger. I promise. So I wanted to go a little bit into the election tonight, but I'm not going to do it. I'm already out of time. So maybe next time, who knows? The election cycle so absolutely, or not the election cycle, the news cycle so absolutely crazy and chaotic. This year has been the craziest year ever, and so many crazy things have happened. We're just numb to it, so we're not even paying attention to assassination attempts on presidential candidates is like not even a big deal. Like we're already past it. And it's like, it's just, the craziest thing that ever would have happened in any other year doesn't even blip our radar anymore. So who knows what's going to happen in the next week, but I hope and I pray, my prayer for you is that you do the thing. Do the thing that you know in your heart and your soul is the right thing, regardless of what a lot of people are doing. Somebody told me one time, and I'll get it. I'll be done after this. And I forget the exact number, but they were a huge American Idol fan, and I am not into it. I don't get it. I didn't understand it. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was horrible. I thought it was awful television. I don't even own a television now, so that probably tells you what direction I was going at the time. But this person was like, oh, they were talking about the audience and how many people watched American Idol. And I told him, I said, hey, this show is awful. This thing's terrible. Like, how can you watch this? And he's like, oh, 20 million people can't be wrong. Or how many ever people it was. It might have been 3 million. It might have been 50 million. I don't know. But he's like, oh, 20 million people can't be wrong. Bullshit. Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can. So go do your thing. Be happy. Do the hard thing. I'm telling you, it'll be worth it. Stop the group think. You know a better way. It's in your mind. It's in your heart. It's in your soul. And you can do it. So y'all be good to each other. I love you. Bye.